Is it alt season right now? Let's talk about the current cycle that is happening with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies that you absolutely need to be aware of. We talked about it the other day, and it is absolutely coming true at this present point in time. So we definitely need to hit that home and a variety of points surrounding that. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Crypto Bobby. I hope you are having a great day, great night, wherever you're watching or listening in from. Thanks for taking the time to join on the channel today. So as we're looking at coin360.com, we can see right now that Bitcoin is slightly in the red. It's down less than 1% from where it was in the past 24 hours, but everything else is in the green. And it has been a fantastic day if you positioned yourself in altcoins recently, and I mean very recently. If it's really over 48 hours or so, you're probably still down quite a bit. But I want to talk about what is happening right now with basically everything but Bitcoin and Bitcoin itself, because it is the most important thing in my mind to keep an eye on as you consider looking at these cryptocurrency markets. So the other day we had talked about the Bitcoin total market capitalization dominance, and we saw that Bitcoin was at 60%, just touched 60%. On Monday, May 13th, about 60.5% was the high, and it has since come down to about 57%. Why is that notable? Why is 60% matter at all? Why is this something that I'm keeping an eye on in general? Well, again, as we talked about, the last time that Bitcoin hit 60% market capitalization dominance was in December of 2017 when Bitcoin went up to $20,000. And during Bitcoin's subsequent fall from $20,000 back down to the low teens, you saw altcoins run up massively and Bitcoin lost market dominance, going from 65% or so all the way down to at its lowest about 32%. Now, I'm not saying that that is absolutely going to happen again, but looking at what has happened previously when we've seen Bitcoin run up so heavily and all of the alts get depleted, there typically has been an altcoin rally. And again, shout out to Chris Berniski for talking about this and calling this and putting himself out there, even though I think it's something that a lot of people in the industry believe, even if they don't necessarily want to admit it. And he repeated that today on the 15th this morning, actually saying the alt half of the cycle is loud and clear today. But getting back to what he said initially, in case you missed the previous episode or you just want a recent summary of it. So what typically happens with these market cycles in the cryptocurrency space? Well, Bitcoin is whatever you think about it. I don't care if you're an ETH head, a member of XRP Army, whatever it is. Bitcoin leads the market. It will continue to lead the market for the time being, for the foreseeable future, unless something drastically changes. Bitcoin leads the market. And that means when there is a substantial fall, Bitcoin most of the time is the one leading the market, and altcoins will fall harder. And when you see a market run up, typically what happens is that Bitcoin is leading the market on the way up. So summarizing Chris Berniski's take, he says, here's the cycle. Bitcoin rallies hard, and the majority of alts drop as Bitcoin is the main liquidity provider in crypto right now, and nobody's selling their Bitcoin. So the value of alts in those BTC terms is dropping until the whales choose to cycle into alts. Then at that point in time, once the quote unquote whales cycle from Bitcoin, they've made their profits in Bitcoin. They move their profits in Bitcoin. They take their Bitcoin and they buy altcoins with their Bitcoin. The value of Bitcoin drops slightly and the value of altcoins goes up substantially, because in many cases, the order books on even some of the large cap cryptocurrencies on places like ByNance and other exchanges are so thin, you can move the market substantially with very little capital. So the altcoins rally harder than Bitcoin did because they are higher risk, gaining a bit in Bitcoin terms. So, in the past few days, we've seen Bitcoin rally 30%. Is it unrealistic to think that some of these altcoins can rally 30, 40, 50, 60%? I don't think it is, because of the way the market typically structures. And then the important thing at the end is what Chris says as well. At the end of this cycle, the whales cash out of their alts for more Bitcoin than they started in with, so they make BTC. Notice he says that they cash out of the altcoins. That is an important distinction here. the quote unquote whales or the smart money in the cryptocurrency space are not just going to hold these altcoins forever. They are going to cash out once they make profit in Bitcoin, go back into Bitcoin as their safe haven asset and as the asset that they're measuring profit against. So one of the interesting things I think in relation to all of this is while Bitcoin was running from the kind of range it was in, while Bitcoin was running, you saw altcoins absolutely getting destroyed, as Chris talked about, as a lot of folks indicated would happen. Altcoins were getting absolutely decimated in Bitcoin value. However, that was also coinciding around the time with the ByNance hack. So you had ByNance get hacked, and what did ByNance do? They disabled deposits and withdrawals, meaning that nobody could deposit money in or out of ByNance. If you had your money on ByNance, you could trade. You could trade your altcoins, you could trade Bitcoin, you could trade, but you couldn't deposit or withdraw in and out. And this morning, after a lengthy system upgrade, is what ByNance is calling it, after a rather lengthy system upgrade process, ByNance has re-enabled deposits. So why does that matter? Well, you're seeing it, and you've seen it the second those deposits were re-enabled, is that many of the altcoins that got smoked against Bitcoin in the past few days have bounced at least around 10% or so, which has been kind of interesting to watch. Why is that interesting? Because if you had Bitcoin outside of ByNance and you saw all these altcoins on ByNance that were getting smoked, you couldn't actually do anything if you wanted to unless you had Bitcoin on the exchange. Now people can deposit their Bitcoin or whatever other cryptocurrency into the exchange and trade for those altcoins, which is likely what is part of the kind of issue driving the slight altcoin resurgence that we're having right now. And as Bitcoin and as cryptocurrency as a whole kind of continues to move up, I do think it's important to think about what it means as the market moves up, because many of you, I'm sure, have been around for the 2017 bubble. I'm sure many of you, if you were around early enough, you made or on paper were worth a lot of money or a lot more money than you are worth a year later or so. And one of the common things I think people like to talk about is, I've already been through the crypto bubble. This time I'm actually going to take profit. Many people didn't take profit. That was an issue. You had an altcoin bag. Maybe your altcoin bag pulled a 10x, a 20x, a 30x, but you were emotionally attached to that cryptocurrency. You were emotionally attached to whatever it was, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, XRP, whatever. You were emotionally attached to it, and you held that all the way down and either retraced all of your gains or maybe even lost money on the way down after pulling a multiple X on the way up. So it is important to remember, as we start to see crypto move in a positive direction, this was actually fantastic advice from Panama Crypto. And he said, things I wish I knew the last alt season. I'm not saying that this is 100% alt season, but he says, take profits on the way up, always leave a moon bag, choose quality over quantity of projects, don't chase green candles. If you achieve a life-changing amount of profits, realize gains and run. Very good advice. Don't be greedy, and hodl only works on the way up. And I think a lot of that is kind of similar advice, but it just comes down to the fact that, if you are making outrageous sums of money, if you are starting to see like really, really solid life-changing amounts of profits because your bags have just skyrocketed, it is important to think about taking profits, because especially for a lot of these altcoins, if they are moving substantially, they will retrace. It's not a matter of if, it's usually a matter of when. Yes, there are certain cryptocurrencies that have had crazy, insane moves in the past and have sustained those moves, like a Bitcoin, like an Ethereum, even like some of the other ones. But for the most part, the crypto market moves in cycles, and it pumps hard and it dumps even harder. So it's always important to stay aware from that as we're starting to see some of these altcoin gains. Now, what am I keeping an eye on moving forward? Well, number one is the price of Bitcoin. I think that is something that you absolutely, regardless of what bag you're holding. If you are a Bitcoin maximalist, obviously it's always good to check in the price once in a while. But if you are somebody that is 100% in altcoins, I think that it is important to understand what's happening with Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin stays in a relatively, I don't want to say tight range, because it's been pretty It's been pretty volatile in a positive way in the past few weeks. But if Bitcoin stays in a relatively tight range and allows for altcoins to do their thing, then I think that it's going to lead to a continued run for altcoins for a little bit of time at least. However, if we see something where Bitcoin just dives off the face of the earth 5-10%, something like that for some random reason, who knows, it's crypto, anything can happen. But if we see Bitcoin drop 5%, 10% relatively quickly, I don't think that for the most part altcoins would be moving in a positive direction despite of that fact. I think we need to be staying in this tight range for Bitcoin for altcoins to continue to move. I'm also keeping an eye on the market cap dominance. Again, I don't think it is the end all be all metric by any stretch, especially when you are in a raging bull market and people point to the market capitalization dominance as a reason that Bitcoin is dying. I don't think you could look at that as a reason that Bitcoin is ever losing favor or becoming less popular. I think that's a terrible metric. But if you're looking to see allocation of Bitcoin versus altcoins, I do think it can be somewhat positive. And the fact that we just saw Bitcoin essentially get rejected at the 60% mark of market capitalization dominance and move down a few percent, I think it is worth noting and worth seeing. Both times that happened in late 2017, you saw Bitcoin go from a 61% down to a 50% and a little bit of an altcoin run. And then you saw the market cap dominance go from 65% all the way down to 32% with a very, very strong quote unquote altcoin season. Either way, I remain slightly positive as far as a heavier allocation to the beloved term shitcoins. And as a final note, so this was hilarious and sad. I'm sure some of you have lost money or your money is locked up on Cryptopia. I would take a beer and pour it out for it because I don't think you're going to see it either for quite some time or ever again. But there was literally a pop-up on Cryptopia yesterday that said, "Don't panic." And it had some pretty graphics that were animated and doing all types of cute things. And then 12 hours later, you have a press release from Grant Thornton, which is an accounting firm based in the US, but apparently also in New Zealand. But they are liquidating Cryptopia. So when you liquidate those assets, they go in a tiered fashion to basically the people that have ownership over them. You're probably at the bottom of the rung, and I wouldn't be too positive about it. But the one point here is, number one, centralized exchanges continue to get hacked and continue to have issues. Always important to keep your own keys and hold your own cryptocurrency wherever you possibly can. And in addition to that, anytime an exchange says don't panic, panic. Panic, 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 panic. It's that's the least calming thing that anybody's ever heard is somebody, an exchange saying don't panic as there's literally fire and smoke coming out of the windows. So something to keep in mind as you maybe deal with more cryptocurrency exchange fuckery in the future. Outside of that, I hope you enjoyed this video and podcast. If you did on YouTube, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, that like button. Ton of other awesome content coming for you this week. Crypto Bobby signing out. Peace.